We have something new today. And this is, of course, diesel heater season. So we've been checking out the latest diesel heaters here for the 2025-2026 winter season. And we've seen some pretty good products so far. The Sunster, the new H-Calorie Toolbox Max, which definitely a favorite. And now we have the new BougeRV. First off, I usually never do unboxings, but I was so curious as to how this was packaged because it is the nicest box of any diesel heater that I've seen. So I was kind of curious what the inside would look like. And well, it's not too complicated. We have our manual on top. You got a unit, remote control, and an accessory box. So we'll get everything pulled out and we're going to do some testing on this guy, but not just testing. We're going to tear this one apart because it has what I think are some very unique features for a diesel heater. Now, first off, a little background with BougeRV. I have a number of BougeRV products. Some hits, some misses. I have their camp lantern. Love it. It's been a great camp lantern. No question. It works to this day. I've been using it for years. It's been a great product. Their camp shower. Absolutely love it. Took it on our Alaska trip. Rich and I used it constantly on that trip. Dozen times. No problem. No issues. Works great. I continue to use it. It's been a solid product. Their refrigerators. Fails, in my opinion. People have bought them. They've been happy with them. That's great. But I was getting upwards of a 15-degree variance from the setting. And for me, that was unacceptable. So to me, the fridges were kind of a miss. But the diesel heater, this looks very different. I mean, of course, it looks like a diesel heater. But is it worth $300? Is it a premium diesel heater? Well, we're going to have to dig in it to find out. So I'm going to go through the accessory box here and we're going to see what this thing comes with, how it looks, and we're going to get some real world testing out of this thing. In the box, we have a battery to XT60 cable. All right. We have a 12-volt plug, or otherwise known as the cigarette lighter adapter to XT60 cable. And we have a 12 or a 110 to 12 volt. So we have 110 to XT60. So we got three different ways of powering it potentially. We're gonna have to actually see if those work at all. We got another box in here. And what do we have in here? We have their muffler, if you want to call it that. This is a straight through with the spring style. So this is pretty much the standard cheap Chinese diesel heater muffler, which pretty much doesn't do much of anything. But we're going to run it because it comes with it. We have, looks like a kind of a quick start guide for the app. So there is a Bluetooth app. I did mention that there was a remote control, I believe, came with it. Took that out of the box. We have hose clamp instruction steps. If you don't know how to use hose clamps, it's got instructions for that. We have a bag of hose clamps. We have their exhaust pipe, which is a standard fitting on one side for the muffler. Okay, and the other side is threaded. The only other unit that we've seen that had threaded exhaust was the newer Sunster, and the threads are different. So that is definitely not a industry standard by any stretch. And then we have the air exhaust hose, standard 75 millimeter or 3-inch cardboardy style hose. So there we have it. All right. Let's talk about the unit. Oh, and we have a vent to go on that. Talk about the unit itself. On, I don't know what the front or the back is, but we'll start on this side. We have the, looks like the air output. So this will be going into our rooftop tent. We have a slit here so we can see the gauge on here. And on the specs, it says this is the DH diesel heater, G001, 5 kilowatt, working voltage 12 volts, working current 5 to 6 amps, 12 amps when ignited, 150 watts on startup, 10 to 60 watts operating power, operating noise around 70 decibels, which would be fairly quiet for one. We'll have to see how that goes. And this is supposed to be a 5-liter tank. This side, nice and clean. Stainless steel, I believe. We have our air input, which has a little removable shield on it. Fan intake seems pretty decent. The controller on here, and I believe this is supposed to be able to pop off. I don't know why you would, unless it has a long extension, which doesn't seem to. Oh, looks like a protective cover for the screen had come off during shipping. So we'll see about putting that back on there somehow. So right out of the box, right? Okay, well, screen's back in place. An XT60 power. Now, I find this strange because no other diesel heater has an XT60. They all have the standard 2-prong 12-volt plug that almost every diesel heater has, almost every refrigerator has. It is an industry standard. Why they went with the XT60, not really sure. It is smaller. Remains to be seen. I don't have any opinion on that at the moment. On the side here, we have our heat exhaust, or our engine exhaust, with a threaded cap that goes in there. And bottom, pretty flat. Now, one thing of note here is the fuel cap. This is an automotive style fuel cap. Should be good for not leaking, which would be very good. The only other diesel heater I have ever seen that has an automotive style fuel cap is the LF Bros N2 Pro, which is a $600 heater. Having this on a more budget-friendly one, 3 clicks and it's nice and tight. Handles fold down, so that's nice, gives you a little space there. So there we have the breakdown. However, we're going to take this a step farther. We're going to tear this one apart. That is something I do not typically do on diesel heater videos because my experience has been they are basically identical. You have a control module, you have a pump, you have a tank, and you have the heat exchanger. However, this guy is supposed to be a little different or a little better. We're going to find out. So give me a minute so I can take all these screws out, which fortunately are actual screws and not rivets. while I'm finishing up taking out these 26 screws that hold this thing together, I want to talk about what I think makes a good diesel heater. And is there a perfect diesel heater on the market, including this one, which I haven't even used yet, and I can tell you the answer is no, not in terms of what I would consider to be a perfect unit. But what is a good diesel heater? Number one, cost effective, right? Can't be overpriced for what you get. It's got to work for sure. Has to be reliable. Has to put out a good amount of air. It has to not use an excessive amount of fuel. It needs to have an app for your control, a Bluetooth app, so that I can control it remotely when I'm up inside my tent and don't have easy access to the module. You go, yes, but they all come with a control. Yeah, but the remote doesn't tell me anything. Only the H-Calorie Toolbox Max had a controller that actually was useful. It told me temperature. It had a carbon monoxide monitor in it. It told me what setting it was at. All I have is up, down, on, and off. So to me, not a good remote, but if the app works, then I'm going to be fine. Then we get down to long-term value. And by that, I mean, is any heater disposable or serviceable? And most of them are disposable. When you're paying $100, 120, 150 bucks for a diesel heater, they're pretty much disposable because working on them is a major pain in the butt. It takes a long time to tear them down, to get to the components, to be able to actually do anything. So that's one of the things we're going to look at on here. Serviceability, value, and all that other good stuff. All right. I feel like I'm missing something. So what that was a seal that went around the fuel filler and the outside housing. Nice little touch, because if you spill diesel while you're filling it, it's not going to go down inside. That is a very, very nice plus. All right, let's start on this side because that's what I saw first. We have the fuel tank. And inside, I noticed something. And I think you can see it here. You see these X's that you see in here? Well, those are full-length baffles going all the way through. Why would that be interesting? Well, if this is in the bed of your truck or the back of your Jeep or whatever vehicle you have, and it's moving around, bouncing on trails, those baffles are going to keep it from really sloshing around. I don't know that that's really important when you have a really high quality fuel cap on here. If that's preventing your spilling, does it matter that it's sloshing around? I mean, probably not, but just in terms of a nice touch, I kind of like that. I think that's something good. The fuel pump on here, I want to take a good look at that. That is unique in the industry. It is not a standard pump that I have seen before. It looks identical, but I can tell it's not because it has an open glass fuel filter on here. So I can look at this and see if that filter needs to be cleaned. That is cool. The fact that it even has a fuel filter is better than almost every diesel heater on the market. None of them that I can recall have a fuel filter built in. The hose, this is very interesting. It has kind of what looks like a spring inside. I'll give you some close-ups here. That's going to keep this from getting kinked as it goes through some different turns through the system. Pretty unique there. I'm going to give them credit for that. Turn to the other side, and we have pretty easy access to the heat exchanger. So if this needs to be serviced, looks like this is going to be pretty darn easy to get to. Our air intake for the diesel engine is right here on the inside, so that's not a piece that's on the outside, which is kind of nice. I see an extension to the fuel tank down here, which is how they managed to get some extra fuel for this guy without just having it on the side. So I'm kind of jazzed about this design. The fuel tank is special. The fuel cap is nice. The fuel pump is improved with having the fuel filter. The fuel lines are quality. The kind of that coil or spring type thing in there to keep them from binding up is really nice. And just looking at it right out of the box, one thing that comes to mind, there are no kinks in the hoses. I have actually had problems with some heaters not working right out of the box, and I've had to open them up, and I have found that the fuel lines were actually kinked because they were bent so tight, and I had to put in longer lengths to keep that from happening. This is all good, and anywhere that I would normally see kinking type problems, it has that spring inside. So I think we have something fairly unique in terms of diesel heaters here. So I'm going to put her back together and we're going to fire her up. Alrighty, we have it put back together. And why I decided to take it apart without having an electric screwdriver handy is beyond me, because that was 26 screws. But I have it back together. I've got diesel in it, and we're going to look at firing this guy up. So first things first, I need to make sure or find out if it will work with the power station, because some will, some won't. Some power stations work, others don't work so well. So we're going to see. This particular power station is the Blue Eddy AC 180, or I'm sorry, it's the AC 70. And this particular unit has fired up every diesel heater I've ever tested. So will it fire this one up? Good question, right? So we're going to take our little exhaust plug out. And oddly, this is curved, so make it a little tricky to just screw in there. Now, for me, am I a fan of the screw-in? I think so. It remains to be seen if that's going to hold up, if we're going to have problems with it, if it seals well, all that good stuff. But then why not do it on the end? That just seems like a miss there, where the Sunster has threads on both sides. So whether that's a big deal or not, I don't know. It does mean that this is a proprietary hose. So if something breaks or you lose it, you're going to have to get a replacement from them instead of just being able to order a replacement on Amazon. Okay, we got a little bending in the hose for our exhaust. Not surprising. These things are notorious for being a pain to work with. Huh, there we go. All right, well. So first off, we will try the 12-volt plug, because a lot of people are going to want to run this off a power station, and we need to know if it's going to work. Now, with other diesel heaters, certainly very, very few power stations will fire them up. However, I have found that the Blue Eddies have been the most reliable when it comes to firing up diesel heaters. But will it fire this one up? Well, we're going to find out. I'll turn, see if I can turn this around somehow without burning myself. And let's plug her in. I have a light. All right, it turned on. Often, as soon as they get power, they'll just power right up. This one actually needed to be turned on. Okay, not a big deal. I'm gonna come over there and see if I can look at it from this side. All right, so it shows that we have a fuel pump, air blower, ignition, electrode, which would be the glow plug, heater core, 13 volts, current time 2308. That's definitely off. We'll have to see about changing that. And it's on 4800 watts. This thing can turn down to 1400 watts or 1.4 K. So when they say that this is an 8 kilowatt unit, that can, or a 5, it can go up to 5, but it also can be turned down to 1.4. And well, I think that's all there is to it. The fan is blowing. It looks like it's coming on. The icon for the ignition electrode is on, and the air blower is on. We don't have any temperature for the heater core. So while this is coming up, we can see we're pulling 107 watts on the Blue Eddy. And I think I'm going to grab my phone and see if we can connect to the app. I've got the BougeRV app here. We'll hit plus. We'll see if it finds it. Oh, there it is. Connect to the heater. We'll skip the tutorial for now. And let's see what we get in the app. Okay, starting to blow harder air. Now, I'm sure you can hear the ticking of the fuel pump. Well, I mean, it's already going down. Not a surprise on a brand new system. The pump has to prime. Diesel is basically an oil, which helps lubricate. Man, that thing is quieting down nice. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so we can see that we're at 1.4. The power is blinking. So that I'm assuming that means it's in a startup mode. It says booting up takes 1 to 5 minutes. When the power looks orange, I guess, the startup process is complete. Okay, good. Our voltage is looking good. Combustion efficiency is going up. It's blowing air, it's not blowing hot air. And it sounds like it's turning off. So, not sure what's going on yet. Okay, how the pump is going again. So it may have primed the system, and now it's going to go into an ignition cycle. Now, they say that this thing will warm up a tent in like 8 minutes or something. We'll have to see how long does it actually take to go through a full startup. How long does it take to cool off or to heat up our rooftop tent? So we're going to have to get it all set up. But I am going to put this one absolutely to the test. Instead of just pulling it up, turning it on, getting some basic data like the temperature and the noise levels and things. We're going to run this thing because, as I said earlier, I have kind of this hit and miss love affair with BougeRV products, and I need to make sure that this thing is going to do what I need it to do when I'm out somewhere in very, very cold temperatures. Having a heater that works and is reliable and can start up quickly and all that, not as just a game changer, it can be a lifesaver. So we're gonna see how that all plays out here. Let's get back to the app. All right, we're showing 86% efficiency, 90%. So it is definitely coming up. I'm starting to get hot air. No, it's not true. I'm starting to get warmer than ambient temperature air coming out of it. Pulling 97 watts. That's respectable. Yeah, it is. It's a little cold out here, but I'm very, very happy that it did start up off a power station. That is very, very good news. We've got combustion efficiency of 99%. We're starting to get some warm air. It is cold out here today. So let me take a quick look. It's about 40 degrees out here. So it's not super cold, but it's certainly not warm either. And I'm gonna warm my hands up here. Now, generally, I would like to see a 100 millimeter or 4-inch air output. And the reason for that is on the 3-inch ones, what we've seen is if you're running this lower on the ground, going up to a rooftop tent, the kind of the back pressure of a 3-inch hose going up that high can often cause these to overheat. This one does have an overheat protection, so it should shut off if something like that happens, but will it actually push hot air all the way from the ground level up to a rooftop tent? So we're gonna have to try that. And this hose is not gonna do it. It is not long enough. This will be fine for my normal configuration outside of the Gladiator, where it really just has to do that to be functional, but we will test it all the way from the ground. Now, you can probably hear this thing is spinning up quite fast. Okay, now it says I got that new icon on there. We got the flames coming out. So this should be up to operating mode. And this is on the lowest setting. We'll see if it quiets down at all here in just a minute. Oh, that is some nice warm air coming off of this. What I would like to see in this app is temperature. I see nothing to tell me about how this thing is operating. There's no faults. Okay, great. Device name, Bluetooth name, firmware version, instructions. Okay, not much in the instructions. Timing. Okay, we could set timing up for different times of day if we wanted it to go on and off on a schedule. I never need to do that. I just want it to work. I'm gonna go around to the front. Okay, we're currently running at 30 watts on here, and okay, very interesting. Originally, the time on here was showing 23:05, which is definitely not the time. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. Now it's saying 8:17, so it must have synced the time from the app on here. That's really cool. So no, we have really no indication of what the actual core temperature is. We can see that it's up to the core temperature, the glow plug is off, the blower is on, and the fuel pump is on. So what does that tell us? Well, not a lot. We can tell that it's working and it's putting out hot air, and now you can hear that fan start to settle back down, so it's not nearly as loud as it was. The fuel pump, I can hear it. It's not loud. And honestly, this being outside of the Gladiator and me being up in the tent, I'm probably not going to hear it, but you can hear it. Considering units that cost a lot less, like $100 less, have fuel pumps that are inaudible. They are absolutely inaudible. It's a shame that this one is not completely silent. So now I'm gonna go and grab my sound meter and we're gonna see exactly what this thing's running at. All right, well, let's turn on the sound meter and let's see what we're getting. About 56 dB. That is pretty quiet for a diesel heater. Often we'll see that in the 63, 65, 67 range. Some of them were upwards of 73. So definitely on the quieter side on the lowest setting. Now, one thing I want to say about settings, right? Now, my LF Bros N2 Pro on the lowest setting puts out a lot of heat. So much heat, in fact, that on a 16-degree day, that's 16 degrees Fahrenheit, it was so hot inside my tent that I had to open the windows and let some heat out because it was getting almost 80 degrees inside the tent on the lowest setting. If I have to open windows to let heat out, I'm wasting fuel. I'm wasting heat because I have to release some of it. The more recent H-Calorie Toolbox Max on the lowest setting was just perfect enough to get me around 65 degrees and the windows closed. So I like that. I'm not wasting heat. This, just from my initial impressions of it, is going to be probably a little bit more than the Toolbox Max, but nowhere near as hot on the lowest setting as the LF Bros. Meaning this will probably keep me at a good, reasonable 67 degrees and probably not have to open the windows. We're gonna see. We're gonna put this to the test. As soon as we get a nice cold night here, we're gonna run this and see how long does it take to warm up a tent like that and how much heat are we getting into a rooftop tent. So until we get to that test, let's talk about some of the hits and misses on here, because there is no such thing as a perfect product. I have yet to see one. While I'm doing that, I'm going to crank this heater up to 5 kilowatts. Mostly so we can just hear the difference. But while it's doing that, I'm going to talk about the things I like so far and things that I think could or should have been improved. The aluminum box, that's a win. I like it, easy to clean. If you get diesel on it, it's going to wipe off real nice. The seal on here to keep fuel from leaking inside when you're filling it up, that's a nice plus. Automotive fuel cap, big win. I'm a huge fan of that. The controller, it's different. It's not the same as all the ones. Oh, I got too close. I'm getting really toasty. But you still don't see a lot of information there, but it's nice and it's clear, it's easy to see. The fact that we were able to fire it up from the Bluetti, that's a total win. The exhaust with the screw in, I'm gonna say it's a win simply because it makes setup easier. You don't have to be working with really tight tolerances to get a hose clamp on there. The standard muffler, if you will, on the end of this definitely could be improved. There's better ones on the market. I expected a little bit more from a more premium priced unit, but it's not the end of the world. The 3-inch output, again, this is going to remain to be seen whether this is a problem with pushing air up into a rooftop tent or not. But to me, one of the biggest ones is ground clearance. If you're running this on a metal table like this, this is not a problem. If you're running it on a table that sits outside my Gladiator like I do, that's not a problem. If this is sitting on the ground, we have a problem. And the problem is a lot of state parks and national parks have a 6-inch ground clearance between the ground and whatever the hot element is, whether that's a propane stove or something. And I believe this exhaust is going to be hot enough to qualify for that, because this will catch grass on fire if it's in dry grass. So diesel heater manufacturers, not just BougeRV, but all of them, I want to see feet on them that can fold up into a position to make it nice and tight for storage, but then flip down to give me more ground clearance. That is a big must. So we can definitely hear this thing is fired up. And I'm getting about 63 decibels. Actually, for the highest setting, that's still pretty reasonable. Let's crank it back down, see how long it takes to quiet back down again. So we do have some more testing to do, so don't go away. But this is just kind of the getting it up and running, my initial impressions, the initial tests of it. We're going to see how long it runs on a full tank of gas, and we're going to put it to real world tests. So all of that is still coming up in this video, so don't turn away, because you don't want to miss the results. Now, if you like this type of video, you like the depth that I'm going into on this, be sure and like this video, subscribe for more stuff, all of our outdoor adventures. And if you're using the YouTube app, there is a new feature called Hype. It just says that you really liked it and that you think it deserves to be shared, and YouTube will push it out to more people. We really appreciate people who use the Hype button. So let's get to some real world tests. Okay, so let's get down to some testing here. So yesterday I took a measured 1 liter of diesel, put it in here. I had ran it dry to make sure that it was completely empty, put in exactly 1 liter of diesel to see how long it would run on one. Now, the manufacturer claim is that on the low setting, it will go through 0.14 liters per hour, which is 0.04 gallons. So the expected result is that it would last for 7 hours and 8 minutes, given that fuel consumption. Unfortunately, that is not what I got. I ran the test twice just to be sure that I was getting it right, and the test came back only 3 minutes difference between the two tests, and I got 5 hours and 27 minutes on 1 liter. So what does that tell us? Well, that gives us a usage of 0.185 liters per hour, or 0.048 or 0.05, gallons per hour. That would give us a total of, let's call it 27 hours on a full tank. Now, why does my testing not match the manufacturer's claims? Well, could be a number of reasons. Either they over-exaggerated, which I doubt it. They probably tested that. It could be my particular unit. Maybe the fuel pump is just putting out a little bit more than the one that they tested. It could be just a difference in manufacturing tolerances. It could be that they may have tested it at sea level, and the fact that I live at little over 5,800 feet above sea level, maybe the altitude played some kind of role in it not getting the manufacturer's claims. Regardless, that is still pretty respectable usage for a diesel heater. Now, if you notice, this thing is covered in water because all through the testing, it sat out here in the rain. So we actually got to see how well this thing would perform in bad conditions, and held up perfectly. It's still working totally fine, even though it sat out here in the rain all night long. So that's good too. Now, to test the next claim that they make is that it can heat up a small tent in 8 minutes. We're going to test that tonight. It's not going to be as cold as I wish it was for doing a test like this, but it will be at freezing temperatures of 32 degrees, which is 0 degrees Celsius. We're going to set it up. We're going to run a hose up into our rooftop tent. We're going to turn it on and see not only how well it heats that tent, what kind of temperature can we get it up to, and what can we maintain over the course of the evening. So one more test to go before we give this a conclusive opinion on this particular unit. So let's go wait for it to get cold and go set up the rooftop tent. Well, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:06. And according to my thermometers, outdoors we have 30.6 degrees, and in the tent it shows 27.3 degrees. So a little colder upstairs, and we're going to turn the heater on and we're going to see how long it takes to get the tent nice and toasty. So I'm going to come over here to the BougeRV app. All right, got the app up. I'm going to go to the portable diesel heater. We got the time there on the screen so we can see that. And we'll crank her up. Now they say it should heat the tent in 8 minutes. And let's get back to our temperatures here. 30.6 and 27. Like I said, sensor 1 is the one that's outdoors. Sensor 2 is the one that's in the tent. And let's see if it can really heat this tent up in 8 minutes. Okay, we are 5 minutes in. The heater is showing 99% efficiency, which means it is fully operational. I'm definitely feeling heat in the hose going up there, and we are starting to see some movement on the thermometer. So it's gone up a couple degrees in 5 minutes. What are we going to see in the next like 3 minutes? So is it going to be pumping in some nice warm air and warming up the tent up there? A couple more minutes and we'll find out. We're 8 minutes on the clock here, and did it work? Well, I mean, technically we are getting warm air into the tent after 8 minutes, and the temperature has now gone up 13 degrees. So it went from 27 degrees to 40.5. So yeah, it's putting hot air into the tent within 8 minutes. Is the tent toasty warm after 8 minutes? No, but it is below freezing out here right now. So, you know, if it was only 40 degrees or 32 degrees or something, yeah, it's going to do better. But if it's 15 or 10 or 12, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. I mean, that's physics for you, right? So I'm not going to knock it for not being nice and toasty in there after 8 minutes, but we are warming it up, and it went up 13 degrees. So it's definitely nicer in there right now than it was when we started this. So now we're going to let it run for a little bit, see how well it does on warming up the tent, how long that actually takes to get it up to a good temperature. And then we're going to crank it down and see if the lowest setting will hold the temperature. And then we'll make our final observations on it, and we'll see how things go. Okay, we're just over 15 minutes, 16, 17 minutes, somewhere in there. And it's getting very, very comfortable up there. You can see it's, oh, you can't see because I'm not recording my screen right now. Okay, so we started at 6:07. It's just turned 6:25. So that's 8 minutes, and we've gone from below freezing temperatures of 27 degrees to it's now 63.5 degrees, and it's climbing fast. So In fact, so fast now that I need to turn the heater down or it's just going to get stupid freaking hot up there. So we will go to the BougeRV app, and I'm going to set it on the lowest setting, the 1.4 kilowatt. Now, why am I doing that? Why put it on the lowest setting? Well, because my experience in this rooftop tent with numerous diesel heaters is that all the diesel heaters I have used on their lowest setting will keep it nice and toasty up there. So that's what we're looking for. We're at 64.6. So I really don't want to go much higher than that. 65 is a very, very comfortable, in fact, it's kind of warm temperature when you're out camping. So it's probably going to go up a hair, probably 66, 67 before the heater cranks itself down. I don't hear it cranking down because I didn't reconnect to it. There we go. Let's reconnect. There we go. Now we're cranking it down. Let's just make sure. Okay, it's on 1.4. And we're almost 66 degrees up there. Now we should start hearing the heater. Yep, there it goes. It's now winding down. 65, 66 degrees for me is absolutely perfect. I like at home, I like it around 65 degrees at night. So if I could have this at 65, it's absolute heaven. And we're going to see that because it was on the high setting, it's going to continue to push some hot air up there, probably get it up to 67 degrees. And now we're going to see if it can hold it or if it gets too hot. Now, if it gets too hot, your only solution is to now to zip open a window and let some of that waste heat out. And I hate wasting heat. That means the heater that I'm using is too powerful for my space. This being a 5 kilowatt heater instead of an 8 kilowatt, probably going to be dead on. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So we're going to give it some time and we'll come back and see where it stabilizes on the lowest setting. Okay, I think we have found kind of our baseline here. It's been running just shy of 40 minutes, and now on level 1, the lowest setting, it has settled down at about 61, a little over 61 degrees, which is nice and comfy in there. If you want it warmer, turn it up. If it's colder outside, you'll probably have to turn it up. But I'd rather have something that I need to turn up to get more heat than have to open windows to release waste heat, because that's just wasting fuel. So I think we've got a pretty good test going on now, and I think I can give you my final thoughts on it. Is it my favorite heater? Not necessarily. I hear the ticking sound, and that bothers me. For a unit at this price, I would expect the fuel pump to be silent. The other ones from this year, the Sunster and the H-Calorie Toolbox Max, have both been completely silent. Didn't hear the fuel pump at all. And however, it is very, very slight. And up in the tent, I probably wouldn't hear it at all. But still, I would like to hear it, or not hear the pump at all. Build quality, top-notch. Absolutely top-notch build quality. It does have a good quality fuel pump. I like the screw-in exhaust. Makes setting up really, really fast. Now, I probably, if I was running a short hose just right into here, I wouldn't be losing some heat in this hose, as I do feel, this is an insulated hose, but I do feel heat on here. So I'm losing a little bit of heat on this hose going up to the tent, but that's minimal at best. And being able to keep it at 61 is definitely nice and comfy up there. You only need a small blanket. You don't need a big, thick, heavy sleeping bag for those temperatures. Is it a recommended buy? Yeah, sure. You know, it's a good unit. It's probably going to last a good long time. The fuel filter on there is going to keep things from getting clogged up. And the app, while minimal, you know, it doesn't tell me the core temperature of it. It doesn't give me any other information besides just the it's on. And it allows me to set a timer. If I wanted to just have it automatically turn on and turn off at certain times, I could do that. But I'd like to see more information in the app like you do in the other apps. But again, for ease of use, it's hard to beat this. I mean, turn it on, set your power. That's it. You're done. There's no thermometer mode on it like some of them have, but in this particular use case, you don't need that because the thermometer system will tend to turn the heater off, and then when the temperature drops below the threshold, it turns it back on. So you have that whole cycle time of shutting down and turning back on, and during that time, your tent is getting very, very cold. So I'm not a big fan of the thermostat style ones, and I think it's a good unit. So if you're looking for a diesel heater, this might be one to check out. Like I said, I think this one is going to last a good long time with the build quality. I like the fuel cap on there. It's leak proof, so you know, if it tips over, it's not going to do anything. If it's in the back sloshing around, those baffles in the fuel tank are going to keep it from really, you know, sloshing fuel up and down and, you know, potentially causing leaks, which I don't see that as being a problem with that cap that's on there. And I think BougeRV did a good job for their first heater. I think if they come back with an improved model, it would be a quieter fuel pump. And like I said, I prefer a 4-inch hose. It just pushes more air up into the tent. Sometimes these 3-inch hoses on these units will cause the system to overheat, but since it's only a 5 kilowatt unit, I'm not too concerned about that. I don't think it's going to overheat in this type of scenario. So there you have it, the BougeRV Diesel Heater. It's cold out here. I'm ready to give it up. I think these tests are extremely conclusive, and it's the best job I could do to really put this unit to the test, because like I said, I've had some hits and misses with BougeRV products, but this one's a hit for sure. So thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe and warm. We'll see you on the trails.